Hi everyone, I am Katie, an interpretive naturalist for the Latodami Nature Center here at North Park. And today we are taking a virtual kayak tour of North Park Lake. So if you're ready, you can paddle on along with me. So of course you cannot start a tour of the North Park Lake without talking about its history first. So North Park Lake is a man-made lake and is in fact the largest man-made body of water in Allegheny County. So this lake was dedicated in 1937, and ever since then it has been an incredibly productive ecosystem full of all kinds of awesome critters that we're going to be talking about today. But this lake is not without its issues. Increased urbanization in the area eventually led to sedimentation that led to the loss of 12 acres of surface area in this lake. So back in 2011, Allegheny County collaborated with the Army Corps of Engineers to dredge the lake and remove 300,000 cubic square feet of muck. So unfortunately, we are seeing sedimentation occur again, and I'll talk about why that is happening a little bit later. But for now, let's get into some of these really cool critters that live here in our lake. So we were lucky to run into the beautiful great blue heron, that gorgeous bird right behind me. Now, great blue herons are a common sight here in North Park, and they can be found in freshwater environments as well as saltwater environments. Now, these guys are opportunists that will eat pretty much anything within striking distance. So that includes fish, amphibians, anything they could really fit into their mouths. But they are most well known for their nesting colonies. So these guys do nest in groups, and we actually know of one nest on our island here that had successful babies this year. So we're hoping maybe we will get a nesting colony on our island. Now, they can get up to 500 nests. I don't think we will see that in North Park, but very cool nonetheless. So they're also known for their size, very striking birds that have a wingspan of about 6 feet, which is quite massive, but not the biggest that we see around here. We do have the bald eagle with a wingspan between 7 and 8 feet, and not the biggest in existence. There was a bird that went extinct, unfortunately, about 28 million years ago, known as the Pelagornis sandersi, which had a wingspan of 24 feet. So that is quite impressive. But yeah, if you want to see a great blue heron in North Park, all you really have to do is sit on the edge of the lake and watch. They're a lot of fun to watch hunt. They keep their necks very still as they walk forward with their feet, and they are quite successful hunters. So maybe you'll get to see them catch something while you're watching. So you may not recognize it, but right behind me is actually a beaver lodge. So we're really lucky to have a healthy population of beaver here in North Park Lake, and they are admittedly my favorite critters that we do have here in the entire park because they're just so cool. So people that think about beavers often think about a couple different things. Beavers chew trees, beavers build dams, and they have flat tails. So let's dive into all of that stuff. So beavers build dams. Yes, beavers do build dams, but none of our beavers here in North Park have built dams, and that is because they are happy with the sufficient slow-moving water here. So beavers do prefer slow-moving water for their habitat, which is why they build dams in the first place. So if they move into an area and they notice that there's tons of their favorite foods like willow, alder, and aspen trees, they will figure out a way to make that their habitat. So whether that be a lake like this and they're super content with this water, or it's a stream, they decide to dam it and create that slow-moving habitat that they prefer. Now, as I said, they don't have to do that here, but the dams are pretty cool, so let's talk about them. So a beaver moves into an area, he thinks it's perfect, so he builds a dam to stop the flow of water. Now, they do that using sticks and mud, and they actually listen for the sound of flowing water to make sure that their dam is sound. So researchers figured this out by placing a Bluetooth speaker in the middle of a grassland nearby where they knew beavers were. They came out a couple days later and found that that speaker playing the sound of flowing water had a beaver dam built over top of it. So beavers listen for that sound of water, and that's how they fix up their dam to make sure that it is nice and sound. But as I said, our beavers here have not built dams, and they instead just build their lodges, which is the structure where they live. So a lodge pretty much looks like a pile of sticks and mud. If you don't know what you're looking for, you'd pass one right up. But this lodge is really cool. It has an underwater entrance, which helps keep out some predators. And then underwater entrance takes you up to a little sleeping chamber, which is lined by wood chips. And those wood chips are not only a nice soft bed for their kits, but it's also a nice way to absorb moisture that would be inside of that lodge. Now, in this lodge right now, there may be a mother, a father, and a couple kits or babies. So every year they have between 1 and 6 kits, and those kits do live with them for up to 2 years before moving off to find their own homes. But of course, right now we are not seeing beavers, and that's because this is not their active time. So you may know words like nocturnal for creatures that are active at nighttime, or diurnal for creatures that are active during the day, but the beaver is something entirely different. They are most active at dawn and at dusk, and this is known as crepuscular. So a word that you will probably never use in your life, but maybe in trivia, you could save that in your lexicon. They are most active at dawn and dusk, so if you want to see one, your best bet is to come out at sunrise or sunset, sit near the water or in the water, and just be quiet and patient. Now, you don't want to startle the beavers if you do see them, because they'll give you a nice little tail smack. And a tail smack is their way to try to scare you away and warn other beavers that there is a predator in the area. So we do know that beavers have those nice flat tails, almost like my paddle right here. And that flat tail has a couple different functions. It can work like a rudder to help them swim throughout the water. It helps them balance when they're on the bank, maybe creating their lodges. And like I said, it helps warn away predators. So if you do startle that beaver, he might smack at you and then disappear. They will dive underwater, and they could stay under there for up to 5 minutes because their nose and their ears actually completely plug up. So yeah, beavers are really cool creatures. When they do create dams, they actually help create wetlands, which are the most productive ecosystems that we have here on planet Earth. So because they're such excellent ecosystem engineers, humans often have negative interactions with them because they don't always do exactly what we want them to do. But we can thank beavers for creating so many different aquatic environments for us. So the last thing that people know about beavers is that they chew trees. So there's a couple different reasons for that. They might be chewing trees to create their lodges or create their dams. They might also be chewing trees for a food source. So like I said, they love willow, alder, and aspen trees, and they will eat the bark and also the cambium, which is the soft layer of wood right underneath. But sometimes they'll chew just to chew because their teeth actually grow forever, meaning that if they stop chewing, their teeth could grow up into their skull and kill them. So that chewing is really important process for a beaver. So hopefully this gives you some tips on how to sight beavers here in North Park. We are lucky to have a couple lodges, so maybe you'll stumble across one. If you do see them, make sure you give them their distance and you are respectful of their space, and maybe they'll put on a cute little show for you. So earlier I did discuss the issue of sedimentation in North Park Lake, and the fact that the sedimentation got so bad led to the need for the lake to be dredged back in 2011. But those issues did not disappear, and in fact we're seeing it happen again. So if you look behind me, you can see islands and peninsulas starting to form and fill in the lake, taking away some of that acreage, converting water into land. So why is that happening? Well, this often happens right outside of the tributaries that feed into North Park Lake, like Pine Creek right here. So what happens is sediment is brought from upstream and is eventually deposited into the lake here, where the water is more slow moving. So that sediment is coming from upstream because we're seeing increased urbanization here in the surrounding areas of North Park. So with urbanization, we take away green space that absorbs water and replace it with tons of impervious surfaces like roofs, asphalt, and concrete. Now, the reason that that's an issue is that when it rains, instead of that stormwater trickling down into grasses, trees, and plants, it's instead hitting surfaces that cannot absorb the water. So once it hits that asphalt, that concrete, it picks up energy, it picks up speed, and it moves really quickly. So as it moves, it's better able to carry pollutants like yard chemicals, as well as sediment from new developments. So as that sediment comes into here, it eventually settles into the lake and fills in parts of our lake. Now, you might not think that it's an issue, but sediment is actually the largest polluter of Pennsylvania's waterways. And the reason that that's so bad is because it fills in lake area and it kind of drowns out our critters that live here in the water. So things like amphibians that breathe through their skin, or fish that use gills to breathe, even insects that live at the base of the waterways. It's filling in all of that space. It's kind of like asking you to walk around in a sandstorm without a mask on. You could get seriously hurt and even die. So this sediment is filling in all of those spaces, taking away our lake space. So what can we do about it? Well, the number one thing you could do is report bad development practices. If you go past a new housing development, say, where there's completely removed surface level turf and instead you're just seeing dirt, well, if you go past that on a rainy day and you're seeing a river of mud coming off of that development, you can contact your local municipality to ensure that developers are using sustainable practices. You can also help by planting trees. There's never enough reasons to plant trees. Trees help absorb that storm water and decrease that amount of energy which is carrying those pollutants into our lake. And the last thing we can do is preserve wetlands. Now, wetlands are incredible ecosystems for many reasons, but they also act like a sponge for our waterways. They absorb things like sediment and pollution, helping it settle out before it gets into our waterways and into our lakes. So those are just a couple things that you can do to help protect our lake and make sure that its beautiful 75 acres are enjoyed for years to come. So the last thing that I want to talk about today is this gorgeous black willow tree that I am underneath of right now. Now, willow trees are awesome because they love to have their roots wet. So they're often found along the water's edges or in wetlands. And like I said, are one of the favorite treats for a beaver. Something else pretty cool about them is that they produce gorgeous seeds with beautiful long strands of almost hair that make it look like it's snowing in June when they're released from the trees. And they contain salicin, which is one of the main ingredients for aspirin. So maybe if you have a headache on a canoe paddle, you can just chew on one of these branches here. But my favorite thing about willows is their connections to ecosystems as a whole. So you may have seen the video, How Wolves Change Rivers. And this is about Yellowstone National Park, but I think it perfectly encapsulates a lot of the things that we've been talking about today. So the story is that wolves in Yellowstone National Park were kind of butting heads with farmers because they were hunting their livestock. So farmers decided that they needed to remove the wolves from the area of Yellowstone. So wolves were actually extirpated from the park, meaning they were completely removed. And once this happened, they noticed an increase in population of the wolves' main prey animal, the elk. So as the elk increased in population, they started to go to other places in the park that they had not previously gone, like the river's edges. And along the rivers were willows, which the elks loved to eat. So the elks would go up, eat the willow trees, and eventually there was no food left for the beavers, causing the beavers to move out of Yellowstone National Park as well. So eventually, because the beavers left, their dams had failed, they broke apart, and the rivers started to change course. They started to pick up in speed, causing issues like erosion and sedimentation that we had seen previously. And pretty soon, Yellowstone looked completely different. And they realized that the key was the wolves. Now, wolves are known as a keystone species, which means that the removal of them from an ecosystem has large effects on the functioning of that ecosystem as a whole. So they noticed that once those wolves were removed, everything else changed drastically as well. So eventually they brought those wolves back. The elk populations decreased, willows returned, beavers came back, the water slowed, and Yellowstone was restored to the place that it was recognized as before. So this story is the perfect representation of how ecosystems have evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to work intricately together. Now, humans are a fairly young species, and we often mess with ecosystems without realizing the large effects that our actions will have on those systems. So it's important to remember that everything in nature has its place, and nothing is more important than one other thing. All the way from those teeny tiny critters at the base of the stream, up to that beautiful great blue heron and those beavers and snakes that we talked about today, as well as the plants that help keep those areas green and clean. I hope you guys had some fun on today's virtual kayak paddle, and I hope you learned a little something. I want to give a big thank you to LL Bean for letting us use some kayaks for today's programs. If you want to check out an LL Bean program, they do their outdoor discovery programs, which you can learn more about online, and they're tons of fun. You can also join me for a collaboration program with LL Bean, or if you're more of a land-faring type of person, you can come with me for a hike. And those programs you can check out online at AlleghenyCounty.us. But until next time, I'll see you guys later. Bye.